leadership and sales. Both, of course, have to work together. And this episode, again, is a reaction on an email which I received. And, of course, I keep all the emails anonymous. But still, I just want to read out to you what the problem here was. So someone sends me an email. I'm going to give you an excerpt from it. So someone sends me an email and says, I like to work in my company, big fun, love my team, etc., etc. And then there's the very important middle part of the email where the person says, during the last 2 years, I lost 4 out of my 12 colleagues who had to be replaced. Some of them now were replaced 3 times already, and they all left due to the behavior of our leadership team. What can I do to make this better? So you see someone who says, I like my work. I like to work where I work, but the email basically says, I like to work where I work due to the sales team, and I try to avoid any kind of contact to the leadership team at any cost, because as soon as they show up, the fun ends. And he was not talking about fun in the way that they're going to have parties or something. They often had the problem that leadership behaved in a very strange way when it comes to contact with their clients. And of course, leadership and sales, the leadership and the sales team have to work together. If you want to get the right price done and the deal signed at the client side, it simply means that you have to work together to agree on a certain price. I'm going to give you an example in a minute how it does not work and how it works better. If you want to sit together in negotiations, you need to be prepared that you work together, because if you try to wing it and spontaneously figure out how we do in the negotiation, you will end up being the loser in that game. And of course, when it comes to strategy, when there is no strategy and people say, I don't know where we are going, what kind of approach do we have to the market? Which products do we bring on the market next? Where are we aiming at? What's our target audience? We are basically selling to absolutely everyone who raises their hand. I just think there is no strategy anymore in this organization. And that, of course, is a massive mistake of the leadership team. So why does that happen? There are a couple of problems we have to talk about first, and as every single time, I promise you at the end of this podcast, I'm going to give you hints and advice how you can make it better. So first, many of the leaders do not know how real-world practice of the sales team looks like. I see quite rarely at the moment that leaders are completely clueless. We had that in the past, that you sometimes had leaders who had no idea about the products. They come from an economics background, from some university, and they were just managing the company. And they were in a machine company today and in a noodle company tomorrow. And of course, that led to many problems. So we have to be aware of the fact when you have someone in the leadership area who has no idea about the product you're producing and how it sells on the market, you have to update their knowledge on that first. But this is something I rarely see. Many leaders are aware about their products and how they sell on the market, or at least they have a rough overview. If you want to go to the client with someone from the sales team, be aware of the fact salespeople often do not like that. And that was the very polite version. It often means when we ask people, do you like that leaders, someone from the leadership team, go with you to the client? When you ask them, not anonymously but personally, they say, well, it's not ideal, but it's going to be okay. When you ask them anonymously, they say, it's the worst day of my life. So you have to be aware of the fact that often leaders start to lead the talk with the client in the wrong way, simply because they don't know any better. So why do you want to go to the client side when you do nothing else than showing your face? I'm fully aware of the fact, because some people will now say, well, there are certain clients, they make a lot of money with us, they are very important, they simply want to see someone from the leadership team, from board level, to see some sort of appreciation. And that, of course, is perfectly fine. But this appreciation does not mean that the person from the leadership board now is leading the discussion and the talk with the client. That is the job of someone from the sales team. And now we come to problem number 2. When you try to agree how you will do the appointment together with the client, often this goes horribly wrong for a very simple reason. And I give you a real-world example here. Let's say you have a client appointment, and this is a real-world example. There's a client appointment 2 weeks on Wednesday. So next week on Wednesday, 7 days ahead of the appointment you meet. So how does it often go? And this now is an example. It happened exactly like that. 7 days before the appointment with the client, they had a set date, a set time, and said, okay, leaders and sales team meet. So the salesperson and the leader leadership team member meet together to prepare properly how the discussion, how the negotiation will go with the client. Then the leader cancelled the appointment because there's so much on the agenda at the moment, so it was moved to Thursday. Well, still 6 days ahead, enough time to prepare. On Thursday then, an external appointment took so long that it was cancelled as well. Then they didn't get the flight back. So on Friday, there was no appointment as well. Then there was the weekend. On Monday, they, of course, had all the Monday meetings. And on Tuesday, they had the aftermath of all the Monday meetings and what came out of that. And then the leader simply says, oh, let's just talk in the car when we are on the way driving to the client. And then we can just agree there how we're going to do the whole talk thing. This is, of course, the recipe how to fail when you go to a client. Because what happens then is you try to wing it. Normally when you sit down, if you go to a client and you really want to sell something, maybe you have a slide deck, then you have a certain strategy, you have an idea, you have your USPs, your unique selling proposition, you have certain ideas you want to put focus on. There are certain areas of your product where you most likely do not want to talk about. Then there's pricing, negotiation, contracting, etc., etc. So preparing something like that takes 2 hours at least. Can easily take half a day. When it's a really important client, it should be worth the investment of time in this case. If you are really a very well-settled team and you did this many times together already, you might do it in an hour, but definitely not in a car, because you can't even look at the slides and agree what is the right order, what are we talking about. So this kind of, we're going to wing it, because often people say, I'm a good people person, which means I have no idea what I'm saying right now, but it sounds smart. But it definitely is not smart. So when you say you can deal with people in a reasonable manner, it does by no means mean that you achieve what you want to achieve as soon as you're on the client side. As soon as you arrive there, every plan you have is gone, and then the client starts to talk, and then the leader starts to talk, and the whole plan you had just falls apart. So you really have to pre-arrange properly and prepare properly. There is a saying which we frequently use in the English language for all our German-based listeners, and it's called proper planning prevents poor performance. I'm very sorry that I just blew that up, because normally some people say, and I apologize in advance, that's what my boss said when I was in the employment times of my life. My boss always said, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Of course, you shouldn't swear in front of clients, but there is truth in there. So these 5 or 6P, depending on which version you prefer, definitely nail it. So when you then see that you are together with a leader, the next problem often is that even when leaders do right in the first place, they often do wrong afterwards. I'll just give you an example here as well. So someone from the sales team goes to the client side. Appointment works tremendously well. Client agrees that they want to work together. Next day they call you and say, look, we can work together with you, but we need 15% discount. Salesperson calls board level, and board level says, no chance. We need the money. We need the margin. There are no 15% discount, no matter what they say. You have to insist on full price. So salesperson insists on full price, and then they say, well, we need to negotiate about that because we can't sign it like that. And then, and here comes the good part, someone from board level says, hey, on Saturday I'm going to meet one of them in my business club so I can talk with them about this topic. Excellent. So a leader offers help. That's a good thing. So on Monday they meet again. Sorry, the leadership person and the salesperson meet, and then the leadership person from board level said, good news, we have the deal. And the salesperson is delighted to hear that. And in the next phrase, the board level person says, oh, by the way, they get 15% discount. And this doesn't happen once or twice. This, meanwhile, became the rule that first leaders offer help, which is good. Then leaders make a clear decision where they say there is no discount. That's also very good. So you make a decision, and then you come back. Not only do you give the discount, which means you lose your own authority that people can believe in what you say. Second, you also told the client, as soon as you have problems with my sales team, just annoy them so they have to call board level, and then you get the discount you want. That is a very bad sales strategy. And also, of course, you professionally demotivate your own sales team, because they know that my own board level doesn't even cover my back when it comes to a certain amount of challenge in a negotiation. They are clearly more on the client side than they are on my side. And then, of course, we have the next problem, because sales has monthly, quarterly, half-year or yearly goals, and they have to achieve a certain amount of profit, get a certain amount of commission. So with 15% discount, they won't get that goal achieved. They don't get the payment they want. They don't receive the salary they want. So they are frustrated all the way. And then at the end of the year, you ask them, why didn't you achieve that? Why didn't you achieve that goal? And when they then say, because you gave them 15% discount, then you will make up some cheap excuse why it's not your fault to give that discount. This is not how sales works. And by the way, this is not how sales ever worked. When you have different goals, so for example, the sales team has their yearly goal and the leadership team has a different goal, then please communicate it. When you tell your sales team, look, we have a challenging time at the moment, we need all the money we can get, so we prefer giving a discount over losing a client, they will understand that. But don't tell them there is no discount and next day you give it by yourself. This is not how you can work together with anyone or motivate anyone to sell properly. So how to do it better? So step number 1, allow your sales team to work on their own. It's called management by exception. It means you only interact or you try to change something when you see something is really going wrong. So for example, I'll just give you an example. Let's say you sell medication and you want to sell this medication to general practitioners, GP, MDs, doctors in villages. And then you realize, oh, our sales team gives cash commission to doctors, which is illegal. Then, of course, you have to intervene and tell them this is not an option we can do. And by the way, of course, the sales leader in this place, the sales team leader had to intervene before, and if he or she hasn't done that, that's of course their accountability. So management by exception means you allow them to do their work properly. Of course, they have to fill the CRM system and they have to give you reports which you get out of the CRM system so you can see how things work or do not work. And when you see them going wrong, you can say, now I want it just to give a speech or talk to different people or change something in the whole sales process. But of course, management by exception means you are not present all the time, because salespeople like to do their job when they're good at it. And of course, you offer them help. When they get to you and they ask for help, you will help them. But don't show up unsolicitedly and tell them how the world works. And by the way, of course, for leadership level and for sales level, for both levels, you simply have to see training, coaching, and qualification is a must in this area. When you don't train and coach your people to get their skills updated, then simply they will be demotivated. And when you have the same sales training online, which is a boring video from 1998, then please do not show it to them, because this is outdated material. I just yesterday had a meeting with a client, with a colleague here in London, a great colleague who also works in the sales area. And he said, as soon as they have video courses online, they delete them after 2 years. And the reason for that is very simple, because in times where we live right now, material outdates a lot quicker than it did 20 years ago. Sales tips I give now in coachings or seminars outdate normally within a year or two, because markets are quickly changing. And I'm sure the same applies to your market. So train and coach your people properly. Step number 2, offer help, but don't show up unsolicitedly. And this is a must rule for every leader, because people really get annoyed when you do, because what you communicate is that you think they don't do their job properly. Especially with senior salespeople, you really don't do them any good when you do that. And of course, step number 3, when you are part of the leadership team and you go on an appointment with the more experienced people, you are in the learning position. You are not in the leading position, you are in the learning position. Ask them, how does an appointment work? What shall I say? What shall I avoid? And what is the strategy we are doing in this talk? Who's going to lead the talk? And of course, the more experienced person will lead the talk. And that is the salesperson in this case, because the salesperson, when it comes to the appointment at the client side, the salesperson will lead and the leadership person will learn. And that's how leadership and sales properly work together. I wish you all the best implementing this in your organization. And for this week, there is only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.